And in just a moment, we'll get started. Okay, I think it's officially time. So welcome everybody to the launch of HeatSmart Monroe. It's a NYSERDA-funded education campaign focused on energy efficiency and clean heating and cooling. I'm Abby McHugh-Griffa. I will be your MC tonight. I'm also the executive director of the Accelerator. And again, just really appreciate you being here, appreciate your support on this. And we have an exciting planned. Several speakers who you'll be hearing from. They'll provide a solid overview of what HeatSmart Monroe is, why it's important, what it means to participate, and how it fits into New York State's climate goals. And lots of people are still entering. So again, thank you to everyone for being here. Also, at the very end, we will have a raffle. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But first, a word about our organization. The Climate Solutions Accelerator is an inclusive, nonpartisan nonprofit dedicated to inspiring and facilitating a large-scale climate mobilization in the Genesee Finger Lakes region. Our mission is to create a healthier, more equitable and environmental community by catalyzing local efforts to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions and address the effects of climate change. So we do that primarily by partnering with both individuals and organizations to expedite the adoption of locally relevant climate solutions. And as you will hear about tonight, heat pumps are a great example of what by a locally relevant climate solution. But before we go any further, let's do a quick poll to kind of get a sense of who's here tonight and what brings you here. We'll see, I think, as of right now, a little poll up on your screen. If you would just take a moment to answer these questions, and let us know why you're here. Okay, I see votes are coming in. We have about 30 minutes or so. Welcome to those who are just joining. We're in the midst of a poll. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on your screen. But just a few more seconds. I'll wrap that up and share the results. Okay, final response. And here's the end of the poll. All right, so I'm going to share the results up on the screen. Can someone, Evan or Taryn, give me a thumbs up? You can see that, right? Okay, cool. So in terms of which of the following best describes your reason for being here tonight, a lot of you want to learn about heat pumps. So that's a very reasonable reason to want to be here. Some of you also are looking to get a heat pump and learn more about the process. Thank you to everyone who's just supportive of our work. I deeply appreciate that. And those who are curious. Boy, it's nice that no one is here because they were forced or that they, so that's in terms of what you already know about clean heating and cooling technologies, or another word, few of you know pretty much nothing, so we'll kind of ground you in the issues tonight. That's great. If you have a pretty basic understanding, but most of you, at that basic level, know what the topic is here tonight, and we do even have a few heat pump experts in the room, so that'll be a good resource as we get into questions later on. And in terms of which best describes how you currently heat your home, wow, we got a lot of fossil fuel users, which is to be expected. That kind of is representative of our region as a whole, and again, what we're looking to address. But few people already heating with systems or air source heat pumps, so that's great. And in terms of your energy costs, not too many people in the too expensive category. And that probably has a lot to do with the cheap price of natural gas. So we could talk about that all day long, but probably best saved for another day. I'm going to stop sharing that. Again, thank you for letting us know who you are and why you're here. I'm going to take just a minute to provide a little more context on what the HeatSmart Monroe campaign is and why it's important. So HeatSmart Monroe expands upon the work that we've been doing for the past year and a half or so in partnership with the City of Rochester and Pathstone on the Sustainable Homes Rochester campaign. So if you know what Sustainable Homes Rochester is, you basically know what HeatSmart Monroe is as well. Similar community education campaign focused on energy efficiency and heat pumps. And the big difference here is that Sustainable Homes Rochester was focused on the city, and this expands that work throughout Monroe County. Clean heating and cooling technologies are very important for our region because our building heating systems make up a very significant of our local emissions. They are a huge source of local emissions. And of course, that is what's causing climate change. And according to the City of Rochester's Climate Action Plan, over half of all total emissions in the City of Rochester come from the on-site combustion of natural gas. So that, that natural gas, we use it primarily to heat buildings, also hot water, but that over 50% figure doesn't even include the methane leaks that are associated with the extraction and transport of natural gas. So that the true impact of our local use of gas is actually worse than the city's climate action plan suggests. And as you know, we urgently need to stop burning fossil fuels, including and especially perhaps with our heating systems. So this means switching to cleaner, more efficient alternatives. And fortunately, heat pumps, these clean heat and cooling technologies, are that cleaner, more efficient alternative to traditional heating systems that also provided added benefits for your health, in many cases, cost savings. So there's lots of good reasons to consider making the switch. And that, in a nutshell, is what we're here to learn about and talk about tonight. So as you can see here from our opening slide, we do have a mascot for this campaign. Meet Doug the Groundhog. And we symbolically chose today, Groundhog Day, for the launch of this campaign. Because, of course, groundhogs figured out long ago that the temperature just a few feet underground is consistently comfortable year-round and can be used to stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Though humans took a lot longer to figure this out, we do now have geothermal systems that work similarly in terms of that they take advantage of this clean, free, and natural source of energy. And I can tell you from personal experience that heat pump systems will keep you warm and snug on the coldest winter days and cool in the summer, while also providing peace of mind, knowing that your personal carbon footprint is not contributing to this dangerous emissions causing climate. And as many of you may have heard, Doug's cousin Phil today did see his shadow. So it looks like we're in for another 6 weeks or so of winter, which is just another reason to get a heat pump. In terms of meeting logistics, we will have time for questions at the end. I ask you to, hold on to those questions till the end or enter them in the chat at any point. You can keep track of them there, and we'll make sure to answer as many of them as we can get to at the end of the presentation. And we also ask that you keep yourself muted just to minimize background noise. And as I mentioned earlier, very briefly, we'll wrap up the evening with a drawing for a $100 Amazon gift card, generously donated by one of our vetted installers, Eco Energy. So thank you, Eco Energy, for that. But only those who stick with us to the very end are going to be eligible for that drawing. So again, please stick around. And without further ado, let's let John Kiebert in from the waiting room. Okay, so glad to have such a great crowd here tonight. But I'd like to introduce Donovan Gordon, NYSERDA's Director of Clean Heating and Cooling, who's going to speak for a few minutes about how this campaign fits in with New York State's climate goal.
So thank you so much, Abigail. And I know I have a kind of a lengthy presentation. I'm gonna edit it on the fly here, so we're gonna go through it rather quickly. I'm gonna touch on it states here CLCPA. That's the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. New York State Clean Heat, that's our incentive program for heat pumps, and NYSERDA's market development plan to help advance in the deployment of heat pumps in New York State. So I'm trying to give a state view as to the investment and the scope and breadth of what we're really trying to do and how this fits in. So we can get to the next slide, please. So the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, slide overview. So this is the most aggressive greenhouse gas reduction goals of any major economy in the United States. We actually happen to be the only state with a climate action law. So our goals are codified in law. And right now, our carbon reduction goal is to reduce our carbon emissions from our 1990 levels by 40% by 2030, and by 85% by 2050. And by 2040, to have 100% zero carbon electricity, and 70% of that by 2030. So we are setting a path now in law to get ourselves to basically net zero or carbon neutral economy, with a focus, with an emphasis on and making strong commitments to environmental justice, to disadvantaged communities, and a just transitions, making sure that disadvantaged communities participate both from a technological standpoint and economic and job training standpoint in this new economy that we are developing. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the CLCPA, and I mentioned the goals. So this is the bar chart of where we were. The last one in 1990, the third bar is where we were in 2016. The light gray is where we need to be in 2030. That's the 40% reduction, and where we need to be in 2050. As you can see, we've got a daunting task ahead of us to get from where we were in 2016 down to where we need to be in 2050. So essentially, we have to decarbonize both transportation and buildings. Just buildings about a third of our carbon emissions. Transportation is a little over 40%. So over 70% of the carbon emissions in New York State comes from vehicles, transportation, and buildings. So we need more electric vehicles and more heat pumps. Next slide, please. I touched on this. A lot of this has to benefit disadvantaged communities. The goal, 35% of all investment going forward need to benefit disadvantaged community, and the goal is about 40%. And we're going to be investing over $1 billion. So you can see there's going to be significant monies and benefit going towards disadvantaged communities. Next slide, please. Again, I mentioned disadvantaged communities. I just mentioned 35% overall and 40% of the benefits going to these communities. Next slide. So again, this is just, again, the CLCPA, these are the goals that are codified in law. As I mentioned, the 40% reduction, so it's here. I don't want to go line by line, but also electric goals and goals for offshore wind, solar energy, and also energy storage. And if we go to the next slide, I'll touch on that last bullet point. So next slide. So energy efficiency. We have a goal right now to reduce about 185 trillion BTUs of end-use savings by 2025. And that's where I'm going to spend the bulk of my time touching on, because heat pumps fall under energy efficiency. Next slide, please. So to do that, we need to electrify our heating systems, and heat pumps deliver the greatest efficiency and emissions reductions. On site, there's no carbon emissions. It does not emit it. So the basic technological change here, difference, is that rather than using a boiler or a furnace, which uses oil, propane, or natural gas to burn a fossil fuel to create heat, we're just transferring heat from one place to another using an electrically powered heat pump. And the heat transfer could be from the air, the ground, or the water. So that's why we'll talk air source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, and even water source heat pumps. So this is technology of the future. And once the grid gets cleaner, where we're producing electricity with renewables, then we get to what we call a carbon neutral energy. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to get into the New York State Clean Heat statewide heat pump program. Next slide. So this is the investment. The Department of Public Service last year approved a budget for the utilities of $454 million to administer heat pump programs throughout New York State. So all of the utilities have a statewide program, one program, meaning that same program rules. Each utility will have slightly different incentive levels, but the total budget for the next 5 years, from 2020 through 2025, is $450 million. So you can look at your local utility to see what their specific incentive program is. So you can look for that. I'm going to talk about the $230 million that NYSERDA is now committed to in market development to help support the utility incentives, but also to develop the overall clean heating and cooling market in New York State. Next slide, please. And as you advance, Brendan, once I get to the 2-minute mark, you can give me the high signs and I'll, speed up and pause or end. So I'm not going to go over my 15-minute allotment. So the goals of the market development plan, first and foremost, is to help the utilities be successful in the New York State Clean Heat Program. They have aggressive goals to meet, and we want to help them with that. We also want to make sure the LMI customers, low and moderate income customers and disadvantaged communities find solutions. We all know that heat pumps are more expensive than traditional heating and cooling solutions, and we want to find ways to make it available to them. Leading to the next point, we also want to invest in finding ways to reduce the cost of installation of these heat pumps. And we have a goal of reducing costs by 25% over the next 5 years. This is where HeatSmart Monroe is going to be helping in our community campaigns, provide consumer education and community consumer engagement to build demand and reduce soft costs. Soft costs meaning acquisition costs for contractors. There's some contractors here. I see one offering a $100 gift certificate to Amazon. This is a way to bring interested customers to them, so reduce their marketing and acquisition costs. So you play HeatSmart Monroe is playing a critical role in what we're trying to do here. I want to advance clean heat supply chain and see where we can find ways to reduce the cost from the manufacturers to the distributors to the contractors to the consumers, provide technical assistance, invest in innovative technologies. I can tell you right now, there's so much R&D going on and so much new technologies that are overseas right now, and some here that's in the R&D stage that will hit the market within the next 2 to 5 years, and we want to invest and help those. And I would consider this the most important thing: train and develop a clean heating and cooling workforce. We want to create the demand, but why create the demand if we don't have a workforce that is trained to install the equipment? So as we transition, and this truly is an economic transition, we are transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy, which is upwards of $50 billion in New York State, by the way, with more than half of that money leaving the state, because we don't drill for oil, we don't drill for gas, we don't refine oil. We're an energy consumer, not an energy producer. So the more energy we can produce here, like through solar and wind, and using geothermal and air source heat pumps, which use local energy, air and the ground, we're transitioning to this clean energy economy, and we want a trained workforce to help us do that. Next slide, please. So this slide is, actually, Ben, I'm going to sort of hone in on this slide because all my other slides are a summary of this. So, so I ended even a little early, so I can entertain any questions that they have. So as I mentioned, we're investing about $230 million in market development, and this is how it's broken out. And these are approved investments. So these budgets are approved budgets by the Department of Public Service, and this is the budget we have from through 2025. First is training the workforce. So we identified critical market needs. So we'll list that and the total amount of funding for that, and then various initiatives within that. So training and development, we have budgeted $38.2 million. That's specifically for heat pumps. So this is heat pump investments. We're investing about $100 million in workforce development for clean energy. So training, installing solar and wind turbines and energy efficiency and things of that nature. So it's much broader, but the $38 million is specifically for heat pumps. And we have several, we call PONs, program opportunity notices, to fund various initiatives from internships to on-the-job training, and other types of workforce training and education initiatives. So, HeatSmart, Monroe can work through Scott Smith and Sue Doherty, who's running that program. You all know and love Scott. He can certainly help you navigate through the workforce development funding opportunities. Secondly is build consumer demand and confidence. Reduce consumer acquisition. Again, this is where you're important. We're going to spend, call it $19 million on marketing, doing a statewide consumer education and awareness marketing. We also do co-op marketing, where we're doing cost sharing advertising with manufacturers, with distributors, with contractors. Now with HeatSmart campaigns, you can co-op marketing with us. And then $10 million over the next 5 years for the community campaigns. And this is what we're using to fund the HeatSmart campaigns throughout the state. And right now we're in, 40 counties, 3 cities, and 3 boroughs in New York City. So we have really strong reach so far, and hope to grow that over the coming years. And again, providing technical assistance. And that total budget, get rolled up, is about $61 million. Though the $60 million for driving performance improvements, and broken down is clean thermal district systems. That's a solicitation we're going to be launching in a day now, pretty soon. And that looks at large scale district systems. And I will tell you, so far, several of the proposals or interests that we've had from local cities and towns have come through HeatSmart campaigns. You have the local reach, you have the relationships with your local elected officials, and if there's interest in doing these larger scale infrastructure systems, then bring it to us. We're certainly interested in talking to you about that. And I'm praying, keeping my fingers crossed, that we do get, I know you're nonpartisan, so I really hope that we do get a infrastructure bill that helps municipalities improve their infrastructure. If we're doing that, it's going to be tied to clean energy. So I'm really crossing my fingers. I mentioned we want to look at new technologies. We're budgeted $15 million to explore and help bring new technologies into the New York State market. We have, this may not be relevant to you, but called Empire Building Challenge, is looking at really large buildings. So it's really New York City focused. To look at solutions to electrify those large buildings. That is a big challenge, and that budget's actually increased from 15 million to 50, because we've had that strong interest in some of these large buildings in New York City, and then looking at multifamily buildings as well. Cost reduction strategies, that's the big one. Cost needs to come down, and we're not saying that contractors need to take less of margin. That's not really what we're saying. Through volume, we expect margin to come down, and there are going to be lots of different policy changes over the coming years that will assist that, and also levels the playing field somewhat. Because we know, particularly against gas, the playing field is not level right now. It will be leveled over the next few years. The big issues, LMI, just, you may not know, but approximately 55%, between 50 and 55% of New York State's residents are categorized LMI. So half of the New York State population are low to moderate income. So we really need to address the majority of our market of the residents of New York State, and make sure that they have access to these technologies and it's affordable to them. Supply chain I touched on, looking through, again, from manufacturers on down to consumers, where can we find value and cost compression. Comfort Homes is a program that was launched last year. It's really weatherization. We're encouraging people to insulate their homes, windows, doors, things of that nature, because if you can reduce the thermal load of your home, then you reduce the size of the heat pump that you need to put in. So they call it socks and hats, caps. If you insulate the basement and insulate your roof, you're more than 50% there, and then that could reduce the size of your heat pump, which reduces your costs to a great degree. And lastly, we're looking to the future. The last thing I'll touch on is we're looking out 10 years and developing a building electrification roadmap, which will tell us or give us guidance on policy changes, incentive levels, and things we need to do to accomplish our first milestone, which is reducing our carbon emissions by 40% by 2030, and what we need to do from the building sector to accomplish that. So I've gotten the signal that my time is about up, so I'll pause there, and if there are any questions, I'll entertain that. If not, we can move on to the next part of the agenda. So thank you very much for your time.
I'm going to ask people, if you do have questions for Donovan, put those in the chat. Thank you, Donovan, for sharing this with us, for providing this context for how this program fits in with the other work we're doing, and just for being here. And NYSERDA's support is what makes it possible for us to do this work. So
my pleasure.
I am going to pass the mic here to Brendan Ryan, our Clean Heating and Cooling Campaign Director, who's going to give you a quick overview of what you can expect from HeatSmart Monroe and how you can get involved.
Hey there, guys. Yeah, like Abby said, I'm the campaign director for HeatSmart Monroe. I work for the Climate Solutions Accelerator. So I guess I'll have, actually, Taryn, you'll probably have to advance a few slides to get up to my first slide. Taryn?
Which slide?
The first one that says HeatSmart after Donovan's slides.
That's what I got. This is the next slide.
For some reason, we haven't seen it change.
I can reshare. Give me 1 second.
You already got a good joke to tell?
Right.
To fill that awkward pause. Maybe one about a groundhog.
I've got one for you. I've come up with the last name for Doug. Burrow. Burrows.
I do actually want to thank Evan. No one else on our team would have come up with this groundhog thing. And because no one else is as creative as Evan, no offense to everyone else on the rest of my staff who's here, like I love you all dearly, but Evan gets the points for creativity and for adding a little levity to our event with having Doug as part of our new part of our team.
I may add some additional levity unintentionally.
Brendan, is anyone seeing the slide?
I'm seeing a blank screen.
Double click to enter full screen mode, it says.
Sorry guys, not sure what's going on.
How do you spell Doug, Evan?
Well, the traditional D-O-U-G, but we were playing around with D-U-G, but we thought D-U-G would be too obvious and a little bit weird, so we went with the traditional D-O-U-G.
Wow, that is very sophisticated of you.
We probably spent more time debating this than we should have.
Yes, more than we should probably admit to.
About now.
No, Abby, would you mind trying to do it instead?
Now, not that mine is necessarily going to work any better.
I don't know what happened. All I did was click to the next slide.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
I would add that any other suggestion for other groundhog mascot names are welcome in the chat.
I think it popped up. Yes, everybody? Woohoo! Okay, go ahead, Brendan.
All right. Sorry about that. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a really quick overview of heat pumps. So a lot of people are unfamiliar with the idea of heat pumps, but everyone's got one in their house. A refrigerator is a simple example of a heat pump. It uses a compressor to pull heat out of the colder box inside the fridge, and it exhausts that heat into the room around it, actually warming up the room a little bit and cooling down what's in the box. Next slide. And so basically heat pump is the exact same technology. Could you, next slide, Abby? Maybe. All right. Yep. So a heat pump pulls the heat from the pulls excess energy out of the colder outside air and brings it into the house through the compressor coils. Because of just how science works, that's a very efficient process, and so we can use it to our advantage to heat and cool our buildings for using much less energy than we'd otherwise use with traditional fossil fuel and electricity systems. Next slide. So heat pumps have two basic types. There's air source and ground source. The ground source picture on the right is my house, just throwing that out there. So an air source system works just like a central air conditioning unit, but it can power itself in both directions. So it heats your home in the winter by pulling the air out of the heat out of the outside air, and then in the summer flips around and pulls the heat out of your house and puts it outside. Um, in olden times, these systems were kind of known to work well in warmer climates like, Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, but not so good up here in cold climates. That is old news. The technology has been improving, and so while these systems do still lose efficiency as it gets colder out, they do heat down to very, very low temperatures. Most of them heat to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So they can work in climates even colder than ours. These systems generally cost about the same to install as a traditional furnace and air conditioning combo would, and cost about the same to run as a gas furnace and air conditioning combo. They are far cheaper for oil, propane, and electric baseboard customers, so that those users can really see significant cost savings, even though they're lower for gas customers. And the second kind is ground source, or otherwise known as geothermal. Basically, that heat, instead of being pulled from the really cold outside air, takes advantage of the fact that the ground stays about 45 to 55 degrees year round. So it's much more efficient to pull the heat out of the warmer ground in the wintertime. So a hole is drilled in the ground, and a water loop is used to pull that heat out of the ground. These systems are the absolute highest efficiency systems that you can get for heating and cooling. They can be over 500% efficient, and the cost to run them as a result is incredibly low. I average in my house $18 a month for heating and cooling throughout the year. Because they're more involved of a process, they do have the highest upfront cost, but they have the best long-term payback compared to any other systems. Next slide. So this technology is also used for water heating. An air source heat pump water heater looks just like a normal water heater, but it pulls the heat out of the outside air, out of the inside air in your basement, which gets most of its heat from the earth around it. Just like an air source heat pump, they're about 3 times as efficient as a normal electric heater. And so you can save about $150 a year over the cost of gas, and about $400 a year over the cost of electric or propane. And they have the side benefit that they reduce the humidity in your basement, which is always good for a humid climate like ours. Next slide. So these are, the real, what everyone wants to know, the incentives. In New York State, there's all sorts of incentives and grants for for all of these systems, all depending on who's applying and what kind of system they're putting in. And that's kind of our job as the Clean Heating and Cooling campaign, is to help walk people through, figure out what what they qualify for, and help them through the process of getting it installed. One of the really nice things that is the most recent kind of development is, as part of the pandemic response, the Green Jobs, Green New York funding introduced low interest loans through the state, that in many cases, if you get one of those loans to install one of these systems, the payments on that loan will be lower than the amount of money that you're saving every month on energy. And so it's basically a cost negative proposition. So it's really helps to lower the barrier of entry for these systems. Next slide. So first things first, if you join our program, the first thing you'll get is an energy assessment from one of our contractors. They will look at the insulation in your house and the air, look for gaps where outside air is coming inside, and then tell you what work can be done to improve the insulation and sealing air gaps. No matter what heating system you're using, the better insulated your house is, the better. You don't want to be heating the outside air. You want to heat inside air. So that's the first step. And then the contractors will give anyone who's interested in a heat pump quote as well. And, get you started on the process to heating your home more efficiently. Next slide. So our volunteer, as our program, we do have some volunteer activities, especially more once COVID is a little bit more under control and we can start having in-person events. But the first thing is, if anyone's interested, if you're ever talking to someone about heating systems, feel free to spread the word, refer people to our program. We're happy to help educate and talk people through the process. If you want to join our HeatSmart volunteer advisory group, we meet monthly to basically give me input on marketing materials, the marketing plans, social media postings, any of that sort of thing. Like I said, events, especially once COVID gets a little better, but we are still having some virtual home tours and things like that. And then communicating with your local officials and basically anyone who can kind of get the word out and help work with our program. Next slide. So if you want to enroll in our program, go to heatsmartmonroe.org. There's a big button that says enroll, or you can feel free to contact me at any time by email, and I'm happy to. And I think Abby or someone will enter those into the chat so that you can have those to copy or whatever. So I guess the next thing is we're going to hear from a happy customer of our program, or actually of our of Sustainable Homes Rochester, the predecessor to this program, Greta New. So they live in the city of Rochester. Their home was built in 1893. It's a 1,750 square foot house, heated with a gas furnace. They did not have an air conditioner, and they got a 4-ton ground source heat pump installed by one of our partners, Aces Energy. And so I will let Greta New take it away.
Thank you, Brendan. Good evening, everybody. I'm Greta. Nice to meet you all virtually. I know it's miserable outside, but luckily we're hopefully all staying cozy and warm inside. It's funny to look at this picture of our house when it looks so beautiful and green out there, and then to look out the window and look at the blowing snow. I know it's going to be a little bit weird to say this, especially now, but this process started because we really wanted air conditioning. For those months in Rochester, as you all know, when it's really hot, humid, sticky, and unbearable. Our house from 1893 did not have air conditioning built in. We had a couple of window units that sort of grumbled along for, when we would try to use them. And we would have to kind of huddle into one room to go to sleep. So it was it's really this idea that, oh, someday we could have air conditioning, that was the premise of it all. And we wanted really to, we were looking at a variety of things, something that would be green, something that would be not as noisy as a window air conditioning unit, and certainly something really efficient. And we thought about we looked at the air, is that the air pump? I'm sorry, I don't even remember these names. Brendan, what
Air
is that
source
called?
heat pump.
Air source, yes. And we got a quote, got some information. We thought, okay, well, this seems, all right, this is a possibility. Then we got a quote for geothermal, and that seemed much more green, like much more efficient, and would kind of take care of all of our needs. We thought I just couldn't imagine, like, how would we drill a hole in the wall of our house to get this in or out, and they took care of everything. So we were happy to be working with one of the contractors. We initially were supposed to be on their schedule for spring, and then COVID, which I think is probably a very familiar chant to everybody, and then COVID happened. So we didn't get, I guess, on their list of when they could actually bring the equipment out and it was safe to do so for several months. So it wasn't until, I believe, the summer, really, when it was already really hot, and we really wanted our air conditioning, or I really wanted the air conditioning, but they did it. We thought that we'd have to kind of evacuate the house because we have a very small backyard. They were going to pull in to our backyard with this big equipment. We were told it would be noisy, and it was noisy, but we didn't have to evacuate. In fact, we just kept working from home. I kept working from this office here, which is in the front of the house. So the disturbance was not terrible. It was very manageable, and it finished within a week. And we were kind of amazed at how quickly they went through and did everything. I will tell you, though, again, we have a very small backyard. We had to do a little bit of scrambling, last minute scrambling of moving plants because we didn't want them to be crushed by the equipment. I think if you have a bigger footprint and if you have a bigger backyard or wherever you're putting this, you probably wouldn't need to move your plants, but we did lots of plant moving in the dark. I got lots of mosquito bites, but move plants around. So that was fairly simple. The garden, we got to revamp the garden in the backyard as a result, and revamped our garden in the front. And so that was all not exactly planned, but pretty straightforward and easy to do. So I will tell you that it was, there's a big chunk of money that we had to put down, but it's going to be overall, we got we got sort of like a 40% discount. And of that 40% discount, like 20% goes directly with NYSERDA to the contractor, and then 20% of that goes to us through tax credits. So it was pretty amazing. Like it was, we got once everything was installed, he was so happy to turn on the air conditioning, and then we didn't have to turn on the heat until maybe September or October. We tend to just layer up instead of, like turning on the heat right away. And we've been very happy with our heat. Our cats have been very happy. They like to sit on the heating grates. We have lots of heating grates, so they're very pleased overall. So if people have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Or if any of the staff want me to maybe mention other things, please feel free.
One very quick question for you, Greta. Lisa, does your system also provide you with hot water?
Does it provide us with hot water?
You have an air source heat pump water heater, correct? I think.
Yeah, so the hot water is it's faster. We do get hot water faster than with our water. We had our hot water tank removed, so we are getting hot water quicker. I think it is more, so it's more efficient. I don't know if I answered your question, Abby.
I think the moral of the story is possible to get hot water with these systems, but there's more than one way to do it. And did my slides just mess up for you all when?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's a perfect segue. And Greta, you're going to stick around, right? So if we have other questions that come up, we'll get to more questions, as I said, towards the end. I think we're passing it now to Belle Beechner. Oh, yep, go ahead, Greta.
Well,
sorry, I will note that, so because we removed our gas, like we had to replace our gas stove, our gas dryer, and our gas water heater. So we got an electric water heater, electric dryer, and electric stove.
And so your goal was to go all electric. And now you don't have to pay that monthly charge just for having a gas hookup.
Exactly.
Pretty significant chunk.
Yep.
Okay, so okay, great.
Right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So next slide, Abby.
Yep.
All right. So our installer partners, over the past few months, it was in December, we sent out an RFP, request for proposals, to all the installers in the area that install these technologies, had some interviews, and came up with the final 3 installers that we're going to work with, which are Wise Home Energy, who does heat pump water heaters, weatherization and insulation, and air source heat pumps. ACES, who does geothermal hot water heat pump hot water heaters and solar panels, and Eco Energy, who does all of the above except solar, actually, but they do all of the heating and cooling and weatherization. So we've kind of, we vetted these installers. We're happy with the services they provide. And between the 3 of them, they've installed over 300 heat pumps in the past 2 years. So they bring quite a body of experience, and we're happy with the work that they do. And we're going to hear now from Belle Beechner, who is with ACES Energy.
Hi everyone, I'm Belle and I work for ACES Energy. We have been installing heat pumps in the Rochester area and beyond for over 10 years. We are so excited to be a part of this program. We've actually been a part of the HeatSmart CNY, so HeatSmart's program in Central New York, in the Syracuse area, for 2 years now, and we have seen exponential growth in what people understand about heat pumps, the people wanting to install heat pumps instead of replacing their furnace with another natural gas furnace. It's just been great to see an increase in outreach and the success that has had. If you have contacted ACES before, you probably talked to me. I would usually be your first point of contact. And if I was not your first point of contact, I would have ended up talking to you at some point, your project. I have experience handling all the grants. So any questions you may have when it comes to grants, I would be able to help you out with. But going forward with this program, I have seen the programs we've had in the area, the Sustainable Homes Rochester, blossom and be successful. And I know a couple people in this video meeting right now are customers of ACES that have installed because of the Sustainable Homes Rochester program. And their installations have all been very successful. And Greta's installation is actually one of my favorites because it's the perfect example of what we are trying to do in Rochester. Any family can go geothermal. It's just finding the perfect formula of the technology, the way we are going to do it in their yard, the financing, the rebates, everything. So if you have any questions about that, I can answer that. But I am very excited to see the growth in the Rochester area. And I know everyone else, heat pump installer wise, we're all on the same page with this. We want to see you go renewable. Doesn't matter who out of the 3 companies here you choose. It's just finding a way to make your house more energy efficient and environmentally friendly.
Great, thank you so much, Belle. So this is our last official slide here. Our friend Doug encouraging you to get a heat pump. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second so we can see each other's faces. I see we do have a few questions in the chat, and we are getting close to 7:30. I would say we'll address a few of these questions, do our little drawing for our prize, and then we can stick on for anyone who wants to hang on longer and ask additional questions. We can spend more time, but anyone who wants to leave, you will be free to leave. So Greta, thank you for answering the question in the chat there about the total cost of their system after incentives. That was $24,000. Let's see. I know I saw a few other here.
And I would just jump in. I also did a geothermal system with ACES. I was kind of the first one. I was friends with Evan and helped convince him to do it. My system was a little smaller. I have a little smaller house and a larger yard. Mine was about 15,000 after the incentives.
Thank you, Brendan. Peter brings up an important point that I'm wondering if maybe Ryan from Wise Home Energy wants to address about insulation products and the high embodied energy of some insulation products.
Yeah, hey everybody, and thank you all for joining. I work for Wise Home Energy. I think, Peter, you're probably talking specifically about spray foam, and there are some spray foams still available on the market that have high global warming potential. So that is definitely something you'd want to ask your installer or your energy assessor if they're recommending spray foam insulation for your house, what type of spray foam they're using. And there are some certain types of spray foam that do have very, very low global warming potential. And in the right situation in the home or the right part of the house, it's probably the best insulation to choose, even though it's not a renewable insulation like blown-in cellulose would be. So it's a good thing to bring up, Peter, and I hope people will talk to their installers or their assessors before they choose what type of products they want to use.
And that's the embodied carbon of virtually any building product. Just good to ask about. The question here, John Kievert asks, are there any programs or grants for nonprofits seeking to install geothermal? And I'm wondering, Belle, if that's a question for you or Michael?
So I have not looked into that recently with the change from a NYSERDA incentive to the utility incentive. That's definitely something we can look into, and I can get you an answer within the next day or two. But I think that's something that is going to benefit me knowing moving forward.
And I could actually jump in on that. There is currently, there are no extra grants currently from the state, at least. There may be some private ones, but through the state there is zero interest financing available for nonprofits and small businesses for the You know, they're eligible for all the same grants as and incentives as residential systems are, in addition to the zero interest financing.
And then it's just the federal tax credit, which a nonprofit can't necessarily take advantage of. And Lisa adds, nonprofits get the utility incentives as long as they pay into the system's benefit charge through the utilities. And the system's benefit charge thing is very relevant to anyone who lives in one of the local communities where there's municipal electric. So Fairport, Spencerport, I think Churchville, a few others. So that will, depending on where you live, most of us are probably in RG&E territory, but if you are not an RG&E electric company or customer, this could impact you. So that would be, again, a question that your installers would be able to give you some good information about. Let's
jump in real quick.
go
So
ahead.
for any municipal electric customer, there are incentives for heat pump systems, and it is based off of your municipal electric. So there are grants available for installing these systems and getting your home off of fossil fuels. They're just not the same as RG&E, NICEAG, the bigger name utility companies out there.
And if you're getting the sense that all these incentives are confusing,
That's what I'm here for. Talk
yes,
to me.
that is what Brendan is here for. The incentives are kind of changing all the time. And so, having that resource, and I think that's really the important role that we play as the coordinator of this campaign, is that consumer advocacy piece, right? And then you can have someone, you get a quote from the installer, you're like, not really sure what it means. You want someone to talk to, call Brendan, right? Okay, so I see we are at 7:27, and I want to make sure people get out of here on time, though again, as I said, we can stick around for more questions as needed. But let me share my screen to show you my fancy schmancy way of deciding who gets this Amazon gift card. I hope this works. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I think I've got everyone's name entered in here, except for, sorry, the installers and my staff, and you guys miss out. But let's see what it says. Drum roll. Okay, that was a little glitchy. Oh, Al, couldn't have gone to anyone better. And we know Al will help spread the gospel of heat pumps, so he definitely has earned his gift card. And Al, we know where to find you. So congratulations, Al. That's wonderful. So I think the link there, I put it in the chat a while ago. We would encourage you to enroll right away. Get your energy assessment. Again, that is free, and we can kind of help refer you to an installer who will be a good fit. And that's where you get started. And with no further ado, thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Donovan. Thank you. I think Sue or Scott also from NYSERDA might be here. Thank you, everybody. Belle, Greta. And again, if anyone wants to stick around, we would be happy to ask questions. But good night to the rest. Okay. Oh, Evan, haha. So Evan sent me a message, which I didn't read, obviously. Event goes till 7:45. Oh, well. No one minds going home early, but who has questions? And I think now that we do have a smaller crowd, if you want to just unmute yourself, feel free. And Michael, I don't know if you want to say say a bit about what you guys do.
Really, the only thing I have to say that hasn't been said is, especially in the low to moderate incomes, if you're on propane or fuel oil, there's a lot of extra incentives, especially with the people that need it the most are the ones that actually wind up paying the least. Other than that, I do a lot of it.
And Michael, do you want to say kind of where you're based? Because
Well, our shop is in Churchville. I don't get to sit at the shop very often because I'm usually at customers' houses, but the building that I call home is in Churchville. We generally travel mostly along the Finger Lakes, especially along Route 5 and 20 area. Kind of takes me all along that area. I get to Batavia quite a bit because I'm pretty far west and anywhere I need to go.
And that is part of the reason why we're very glad to have you as part of this program to kind of expand out toward the west. We have a lot of presence on the east. I know a lot of you live on the east, but so moving the heat pump revolution over towards the west is very exciting. Anybody else have questions?
Nope. I have a question. So what would be the expected payback time for one of these systems?
So it depends on a few factors. If you're on, I'll go with you're on gas because most people are on gas.
Yeah.
So if you just look at the energy savings alone, it's usually well, there's no real payback for an air source system because they cost about the same to run as a gas system does. So they're best. Those are best to install if you already need to, install a new gas furnace. But if you're talking about geothermal, usually on the energy costs alone, those will pay back in about 15 years. And if you are already needing to be replacing a system, like when I installed mine, I had a 30-year-old furnace and a 30-year-old air conditioner. So I was kind of on borrowed time, and they really only cost a few $1,000s more than installing, both of the, the standard components would. And so in that case, you can have a significantly lower payback. I calculated mine personally down to about 5 years. And that's one of the like I had mentioned about the financing, with the financing that's available now. They typically use a 15-year term, and for most cases, at least for many cases, the payments will be lower than the cost if you don't pay up front.
Ruth, does that tell you what you need to know? Or Ryan, I see you just unmuted yourself. Do you have something you want to add to that?
No, that's good. Thanks. I'm good.
Yeah, I guess I would just add that it really depends on what incentives you're eligible for. I don't like to go straight to the end all be all, but we just had a client today that qualified for $25,000 worth of insulation improvements for their home and air source heat pump systems. So there are incredible incentives available right now, and her payback time is 1 day, so it really depends on the individual household and what incentives are available. And we appreciate Donovan and NYSERDA for trying to focus a lot of their incentives to help some of the lower to moderate income households make these improvements in their home.
What other questions? And I'm also wondering, Lisa Marshall, do you want to share anything? Lisa is a special guest from Tompkins County, the HeatSmart program down there. Want to introduce yourself and talk about your campaign?
Thanks, Abby, for the shout out. Congratulations to the Climate Solutions Accelerator for the launch of HeatSmart Monroe. We are so excited. We're rooting for you. I do live in the southern tier, but I own a home in Monroe County, so I just enrolled during the webinar. I'm looking forward to getting a proposal from ACES for my Rochester house. And yeah, just great job, you guys. Congratulations. And, we're really excited this year. One of the silver linings of COVID is we've all the clean heating and cooling communities across New York State have become very close and are helping and supporting each other. And we're all sort of it's a synergy of energy around heat pump adoption, and we're starting to really see results. So thanks so much for being a part of the movement, making a difference.
And I'm also wondering, Kevin or John Wiltsey might want to say just a word about what's happening with this program throughout the, kind of surrounding counties.
Could I answer a question first?
Of course.
John Hartman. So all the income thresholds for the programs do depend on your household size. So it's kind of hard to give you one specific number. But on our website at heatsmartmonroe.org, there are all of the income thresholds for both the low income, which is Empower, and the moderate income, which is called Assisted Home Performance, are available on our website. So you can see what the current, for your specific household size is.
Kevin or John, do you want to say a word?
Yeah, I'll say a few things. Well, first off, congratulations on the launch. It looks good. You guys did a good job, so kudos there. I echo exactly what Lisa said too. There's a lot of good HeatSmart community campaigns that's out there. We all want to be supportive of each other. Our program will hopefully be coming out shortly too, and we'll be the HeatSmart Finger Lakes North campaign. We'll be operating in the Ontario, Orleans, Genesee, and Wayne County. So we're kind of surrounding Monroe County, along with still have the Sustainable Homes Rochester program, clean heating and cooling program going on. So we still want to try to do as much as we can to entice as many customers to get involved, to try to get all the incentives that's out there available, or just to get information so they can make their home the best it is, most comfortable it is for them. They can reduce their need on fossil fuel and hopefully reduce their costs overall for utilities. And for the contractors, let it be known that we also submitted an RFP out there because we're looking for people to join our campaign too. So just so you know that too, okay? And thank you. And once again, congratulations.
So I don't
And this is John Ropey at Pathstone. Just quickly, Pathstone also operates the Weatherization Assistance Program in Monroe County outside the city, and Action for a Better Community does that program in the city. And we urge everybody who might qualify for assistance under those programs to avail themselves of the free services that they can get for insulation and air sealing, which can be a great lead into a heat pump system down the road. And we also have some incentive funds for low and moderate income customers to help them to bridge the gap between a traditional gas-fired replacement furnace and a heat pump. So Kevin Graham can provide you with information about that. We look forward to working with this new campaign, and congratulations on the launch, Abby, and your whole team. Great job.
Thank you for being here, John. Okay. Akila, does ACES do air source as well? I don't want to speak for you, Belle, but I think the answer is no. Is that right?
So we do not right now, and anytime someone would want to install air source, we would direct them to one of the other installers in this group because they are the experts in the area when it comes to air source.
Yep. And that's why we wanted to make sure with this campaign that the installers we have can kind of do it all, right? And that they will help refer customers to find the best fit. So thank you for that question, Akila. And, Lisa mentions that an example of moderate income, currently a household size of 4 people, needs to be earning under $120,000 a year to qualify. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, last call for questions.
I'd just like to add, if I could, many of you in this room know me and probably are aware that Greta and I live in the same house. And I just want to add a couple more things that I thought were important about our geothermal experience. The upfront cost was significant. There's no question. But the incredible savings that we've experienced already just since the summer in electricity costs for cooling and heating our home versus the combined electric and gas bills that we had before has been nothing short of extraordinary. So the trade-off of the temporary disruption of the installation in our teeny tiny backyard, which was exciting because in some ways it was a tricky and pioneering project to do it on such a small footprint, but it went off quite well. that temporary disruption. I think Greta maybe overstated the ordeal of moving the plants. That was an easy decision to make for the life of clean, green, affordable, low maintenance, low cost system that we have now. So highly encouraged. And air source heat pumps are a significant improvement over the gas as well. So thank you for indulging that.
Great, thank you, Evan. And I'll just add, some of you may be familiar with our Go All Electric initiative that we've been working on for a while, which actually you're going to see kind of the new brand of that come out soon. It's got a new name. I won't reveal right now, but keep an eye out. But this Go All Electric idea, right? It doesn't stop at heat pumps. We need to be electrifying our, transportation. We need to be electrifying our heating systems. As someone mentioned, I think it was Donovan actually, he's looking forward to getting his heat pump dryer. If you're in the market for a lawnmower, go for the electric version. So that, that Go All Electric mantra, we'd really like to kind of ingrain that in everyone's mind. So when you do have some sort of purchasing decision, you choose the electric option. And that's of course because electricity can be sourced from renewables, whereas burning fossil fuels is always going to be burning fossil fuels. And yes, and better yet, says Lisa, don't plant grass. I think another opportunity presented by getting your lawn destroyed by installing a geothermal system is that it provides you with the opportunity to put clover back in the place of your grass or something else as an alternative to that. All right.
Food, plant food.
Food, plant food. All right, guys, I think we are pretty much at the end tonight. Yes, kale is good. Al says go 100% renewable CCA programs. All right, so we've got the choir here, and I really appreciate you guys, your support of this campaign, helping spread the word about heat pumps. Because really, we are still in a situation where a lot of people in our region simply don't know what a heat pump is. So when it's time, for them to replace their heating system, they might just not think of doing anything other than a traditional gas furnace. And so that's why, it's up to those of us who are aware to get the word out there. Thank you.
The heating's great, but you can also get your guilt-free AC as well and enjoy it just like Doug. Guilt-free.
Happy Groundhog Day, everybody. Have a good night. Al, we'll be in touch. Bye.